Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts Seasons 1 and 2 on Netflix. And I thought that the series was okay. Mainly because of the kind of rushed nature of the story and how that affects other elements and how it was kind of pretty much put off. We've got an overarching story arc, but we've also got kind of ones that try and do standalone episode kind of stuff, but they still kind of tie in. It's really strange because I think it would be better if this show had more episodes because there's 10 episodes in the first season and 10 episodes in the second season, and the really fucking annoying thing is a lot of shows do this thing where one show gets away with one kind of season order. Say it's like The Walking Dead going with like 16 episodes, or other shows that used to have like 22 to 23, and they think all stories have to do that, which lead to two possible scenarios. It's either like stretched out completely, or they, in the case of like the longer ones where they've only got enough stories for like supposedly 10 comfortably, and you're like, okay, that'll been good, but you got to stretch it out to like 20 something or 16 something. You're like, ah, shit. Then you also get where we're at here, and I think that they had story that needed more time to breathe, and they had to condense shit and really kind of rush through certain things. So that's where my main issues come in with this. Not the world, not the characters, because the world building's interesting. Because we go and we're like, oh, okay, here's the world, and then boom, it's like, what the apocalypse time. Woo! Here we go. And then we see this kind of purple girl pop up out of like a drain kind of system because of some kind of weird shit going on. She's like, I gotta find my dad in my burrow. Come to find out, some apocalypse type scenario had gone on. Most animals are now mutated, mutes, and control the surface. There are still humans around, but there's a lot of like speciesism going on of like, screw the humans, mutes around. And then the humans are like, everything's kind of scary, especially since there's like giant dragonflies, giant dogs, giant monkeys, and giant things, and fucking frogs that have like a mafia kind of shit going on. Or they have everybody's got reason to be like, I'm kind of afraid of everything. So it's like, okay, but Kipo really doesn't feel like that. She's a pretty good protagonist, except that they fall into the trap of, okay, they think it's a kid's, it's a kid's show. So they mainly pretty much force her to talk her way out of everything. Now granted, I don't have a problem with that per se, but the thing is you have to make it interesting. Kind of like the Superman kind of effect. You have to put Superman into situations where he's got to think of other ways than to like punch or use his power to get out of. Granted, they are pretty much setting up in the first season of Kipo doing all this talking and showing that that's the best kind of way to go through things, and then eventually as it goes on and she develops certain other things, she does have to fight. So they do kind of do that, but again, condensed. So she gets shot out. She's pretty much trying to figure out what's going on. She's like, oh, this is all kind of cool and everything. Finds kind of a pig that's got like 4 eyes and stuff. And it's like, okay, that's kind of an interesting pig. And then meets one of my favorite characters, Wolf. Now, she has the most kind of dynamic arc because she's at first alone and like, leave me alone. And she really transforms at the end of like the second season of really being into the group and loving her friends and doing whatever she can to kind of help people out. But that doesn't take away her badassery. She's like the most accomplished fighter in the group. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of cool. So she's like, all right, fine, I'll take you back to your home and your dad. Let's do this. So they pretty much go on their adventure. They run into timber cats and stuff like that, which are like lumberjack cats. And she helps them out. They have to then go through. They're trying to find this mega monkey because it evidently is the thing that crashed into their burrow for some reason. She's wondering if they were like eaten or taken or whatnot. They of course find the mega monkey and find something that belonged to her dad, and they're like, all right, let's kind of figure out what's going on here. And that's good. That's good plot progression. The thing is, we also get like weird flashbacks and stuff that we see that like, oh, okay, her dad, who's pretty cool, pretty much shot her out because he didn't know what was kind of going on and trying to figure out how to make sure she was safe. It's like, yeah, there's a second burrow. If I'd known that, I wouldn't have fucking shot my kid out of a water pipe to make sure she survived. What do you want me to do? You should have trusted in the system. It's like, the fuck, man? You're so... It's just like, oh god, no. But they eventually run into this other group of Benson and Dave, and they help them out. I mean, they were there with the Timber Cats, but Benson and Dave are kind of like a weird kind of oddball group. Dave is a mute who is essentially immortal and goes through like all the different bug stages at various different points. Like it'll be baby, then it'll be kind of like a toddler, and then a teen, then kind of like young adulthood, then like super beef buff cake kind of dude, then old man dude, then fucking... I like the comedic effect that usually goes on with him. He doesn't have as much character arc movement. He just... I mean, he eventually does kind of like fun, like funny kind of stuff. And it like helps with the comedy aspect, but he doesn't really achieve anything. He's just really kind of not bad dumb, but he just doesn't really think of trying to expand his mind. He loves his friends and everything, but he comes up with like some of the oddest fucking things to do. Benson's an interesting one in that he can pretty much... He comes up with some interesting kind of plans on his own as well. He's usually the one that brings up some certain things, though granted, Dave kind of is like, Flaming Wraith kind of shit. It's like, what? That's more in the second season. But the first season takes over the course of like 10 days. I'm thinking like weeks or something that pretty much pass. I'm like, what? And in this time, they like go through all these things, meet these different people. Hell, Kipo is shown by Benson that the surface isn't all bad, going to Ratland and all that, where she's like, I like you, and he drops the bombshell that he's gay. And I don't have a problem with that. It's just because of its rushed nature. It's like, when it got to the end of the season, I'm like, 10 days? And she's already kind of confessed that she liked someone? I'm like, what the hell? Granted, I can understand feelings can develop, but I'm like, holy shit. It's going so fast. It's like, oh, okay, all right. And it doesn't help that we get to the barrow, the second barrow, and it's like, oh, okay. But of course, the antagonist of the group, Scarlemagne, is coming in to try and like take all the humans because he wants to build an army with his pheromones. It's like, okay, that's interesting. And he's more... I mean, he pops up in the first season, but we get more information on him and him more movement in the second season. So they pretty much get captured. They get into the barrow, but of course Scarlemagne pops up. We see that Kipo is also developing like part mute powers, because evidently she has the ability to turn into a mega jaguar. And then we start getting into the really problematic kind of things. Now, it's not like a giant problem, like, oh, this show's fucking horrible and horrendous. But there's a lot of different things to unpack here, especially when we get into the second season, that I think a kid's show or any kind of show can really delve into. Because we find out that Kipo's mom didn't die of burrowpox like her dad said. And that he was also taken by Scarlemagne, as we're like learning all this stuff in the second season. That him and Song saw what was going on up top and wanted to essentially enhance humans and make them like part mute. The problem comes into effect in that they did this with Kipo, and as Kipo's reading the journal, as she's getting this information like in the middle / towards the end of the second season, she's really gung-ho for it. Now, I'm a science person, and I like science myself. But it is ethically fucked to not think of the ramifications of genetically altering someone before they even have the choice of if they want to go through with that genetic altering. Now, granted, if you did go into it, it would kind of derail what the plot is of this story. But when this pops up, I'm like, you are alright that your parents are like, hey, guess what? Here's some kind of mute stuff. Fuck. And see, the thing is, they were being ordered to do this so that way the mute gene can be isolated. And then here comes the other conundrum of Dr. Amelia, who is the true, well, another antagonist. She's like one of the big ones, but she wanted to isolate the mute gene so that way they could return all the animals to normal. Now, that's kind of problematic because most of these mutes have sentience. They have free will, and they can think, and they can communicate, and you're going to take that away from them forcefully, so that way you can assert your dominance and shit. Now, granted, I do like these conflicting things because we've seen, because of her actions and her choices, and because Hugo / Scarlemagne became the way he did, because he's like reading about kings. He's like, I'm going to bring kings back into the surface and everything. And that got him on his like diabolical thing, as we saw that he was doing some stuff. Dr. Amelia saw him playing the piano and could speak and everything. Pretty much locked him up, have him running to do his pheromones because he had used it, and it only works on humans. And that would work very well for Amelia to do all these kinds of things, but as we see, things start coming to a head. They don't understand that Kipo's mom and dad have been doing these things to make Kipo, so when she's born, they pretty much isolated Kipo's mom until she was born, but she was also having side effects of being... She had a genetically engineered baby growing in her, had the side effect of pretty much having her mega mute into the monkey, and that's the thing. I'm like, I kind of called that as that was popping up. I'm like, okay, recognizes Kipo, I'm going to say probably the mom. Not bad. If you can call something out because you can see the things going on, that doesn't mean a story's bad. Not everything has to subvert expectations. That's become a fucking trope-ass meme in itself, that where you're like, oh, okay, that's become the norm, so then it's going to be like, let's do this. Okay. Mega Monkey. Alright. We also got some, like, Kipo learning her stuff of, like, going to, like, oracles and goats with cheese. I don't mind that. It's interesting to tie back into, like, the 3 blind fate women in Greek mythology, talking about, like, threads of destiny and fate and all that kind of stuff. I like that. Interesting. Interesting way to give us exposition on everything. And that's kind of where they get all their information and figure out what they're trying to do. We see that Scarlemagne is trying to build a golden city, because that just works with his motif, and he wants to subjugate all the mutes because he feels that nobody picks him unless they don't have a choice. And I really liked Hugo / Scarlemagne's character, because he really does have valid reasons for distrusting humans, because Kipo's dad didn't go to really look for him. Now, granted, he had a baby, so you kind of had to fucking understand that. And that, okay, Hugo, you've got mind control pheromones. You can walk, and you can pretty much fend for yourself. This baby, which, granted, can make a giant jaguar paw, fucking can't. You know? But, of course, Hugo has no idea to process that trauma and everything, except to try and push that trauma onto other people. Definitely showing a good representation of how, if you're not careful, the cycle of kind of trauma and violence and hurting of people continues that. Kipo, of course, tries to break that a lot throughout this show, and I do like that aspect. Helping to bring Wolf into a better kind of frame of mindset with how to deal with people and to deal with mutes. Also dealing with this one mute that runs a brunch bar and helping her out even though she was against humans. It's like, alright, fine, here, I'll help you. That led them to this one crazy-ass fungus kid. Weird. And, like, they had to use a tardigrade dude to kind of help him out of that situation. But we get to the position that, of course, Scarlemagne is back in control of Kipo's mom, but of course they use the tardigrade to kind of help that out. Dr. Amelia is trying to go and pretty much take out... She wants control of the Mega Monkey, Kipo's mom again, and wants to take out Scarlemagne, and then also, after they're done using Kipo as the Mega Jaguar, to kill her ass. It's like, holy shit. And see, the thing is, it was important for them to find the whole history of Kipo so she could get her anchor so she can turn from Mega Jaguar back to human. So, okay. I dig that. You gotta have these kind of quests built into the story, and I like them. It's just, it takes such an accelerated course that I think sometimes you need to take a little bit more room to breathe. Granted, I think that this should have been more focused into, if you're doing the plot arc, plot it out completely. Sometimes have some, like, episodes just be like flashback if you need to do that for flashback information. Otherwise, just do it kind of as an exposition kind of style kind of thing. So, she's got her anchor. She's going to go take on Scarlemagne, but she gets kind of captured. Well, she goes by herself to figure out what's going on with her dad. after her friends are like, yeah, go and try and figure out what's going on with that. While they pretty much run interference on Dr. Amelia. That's, of course, where she gets all this stuff into the backstory of Hugo slash Scarlemagne and her dad and all that kind of thing. And the thing is, we get that kind of late with Scarlemagne, and I kind of wish that it had been done a little bit earlier. No complete issue. It's just like, okay, because it's like completely devoted, really gets us into the. And I'm like, this would have been a lot helpful earlier, so that way we kind of really get acquainted with Hugo. And Kipo's like, yeah, I'm trying to help you out here. She even provides a gift for him to try and change his mind, but of course, he's like, now I'm gonna like do this. He even gilds the mob frogs as a gift for Kipo. She's like, no, I didn't ask for that. And she, of course, is trying to get him for choice. He's like, no. All right, then. I'll let everybody go and everything. They can choose if I rule them, but you got to gild your father. And it's like, no. Whenever there's a choice involved of, like, you have to hurt someone, that's not really a choice. That's still using a threat of violence, no matter who does the violence, to coerce a choice. And, of course, Kipo doesn't fall for that. And we see that, of course, the mom, as the Mega Monkey, is helping out, getting the humans out of there and all that. Of course, the Mulholland, the tardigrade, has helped them so that way they're not being mind controlled. But the thing is, this kind of throws Hugo off. And it's like, screw this! Hits off on one of the devices that he had and just pretty much has gold pouring in that's pretty much going to cover everything. They get a good amount of people out, and we see at one point that Benson and Troy, one of the people from the borough that he has, they like have crushes on each other, and they like pancakes. Again, I don't have a problem with that, but it is accelerated to the point I'm like, wow, okay, that's really kind of convenient that he found someone that he liked at the borough and that liked him back, but it's mainly because of how the story's got to move along, so we got to have these things happen at an accelerated pace. Again, I don't have a problem with it. It's just like, oh, you're gonna get into this right now as you're about to be covered in gold, molten gold. Granted, I'm all for love and all that kind of stuff. It's just like priorities. We can talk about that stuff after we've got the threat of the gold away. Ooh. Which kind of does happen as they go. And we see that Kipo's trying to figure out what to do. Scarlemagne got knocked out, but they do take him with them. And it's really kind of good because Scarlemagne made the choice to be an asshole. Kipo gave him the chance to be good. That is the important bit. Kipo's then like, okay, we gotta stop that, so we gotta screw that tree over, so she turns into the Mega Jaguar, even though her anchor, the photo of her as a baby with her mom and dad, was burnt, but she's like, screw it, I gotta help my people and everybody, and turns into it, and is able to double transform, well, not double transform, but ascend even further into her Mega Transformation. Her and her mom are able to push it off, but she can't turn back. Of course, they start doing a kind of song because there was one where they were doing a kind of karaoke thing, and they, of course, used themselves as the anchor, and Kipo's able to turn back. Mulholland also said that, like, she might be able to turn back, but might not. But since Kipo was able to do it, if they work with her mom, she should be able to turn back into a human as well. That, of course, is the end, and it's like, oh, okay, that's pretty good. That's the end of season 2, but it also sets up that the humans were driven back towards Dr. Amelia, and she's like, hey, I got the information because the book was left behind to isolate the mute gene, so work with me, and we're going to turn all the mutes back into animals, and we'll take the surface again. It's like, ah, shit. And, of course, Kipo's like, hey, we're going to have to go and rescue our people from that crazy-ass bitch. And setting up season 3. I'm like, holy crap. It kind of ends more cliffhangery than I like. Because cliffhangers have been so overdone. I don't mind teases, but this was such an accelerated that feels more of a cliffhanger to me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because sometimes I think when you get a story, you should have kind of a closure for what's going on. That doesn't mean everything needs to be resolved. You could have Kipo and the rest a couple days later trying to figure out what's going on, trying to make plans, and then of course you see, we check in. I would have been fine with having the Dr. Amelia reveal kind of towards the end, and that be the kind of last shot, be like, okay, so that's kind of teasing it and there. But of course, I'm saying accelerated a lot, but the pacing is so kind of more rushed that it's just like, so this was an okay one. It was enjoyable. The action scenes aren't too bad. They're pretty good. I like the animation style, and the voice acting was really on point. You really got into the characters and everything. There is some character development, but of course it's more a rushed kind of time schedule, so it's like, you kind of get there a little bit faster than I believe you should in certain instances. Definitely would be good for kids. It's not really overly that violent. Small children would be kind of freaked out with the animals potentially, but like the mid range of like 5 and over to like 13 or so. Like past that, because Kipo turns 13 in the episode. So yeah, it's interesting. I definitely like the lore and the world building and everything going on, and that I would really like more expansion on, and maybe taking a kind of slower pace. That's pretty much the main kind of complaint I have. I wish that they had had more time, but it seems like they're like, we might be canceled, go as fast as you can. And I completely understand that kind of mentality, because when you're taking certain kind of risks with certain kind of animated shows, you kind of feel like you have to go fast to get certain things in that you want to. I get that. I just wish it wasn't like that. So, would I recommend this? Definitely for kids. If you got if you're older or whatnot, and you kind of just want kind of like a palate cleanser or whatnot, it's 20 episodes at the moment. You could breeze through pretty quickly. It doesn't move horrendously slow, and if you need something in the background, it would definitely be serviceable. So yeah, those are my opinions on the seasons. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.